Is up and welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Liz, and this is Crime Time, where I'm your host. Sit down, I'm going to talk about true crime. Yeah, after I'm fully caffeinated. You know, when you do a lot of soul searching in life, you tend to exhaust your brain. And I feel like I hit that point yesterday. My brain is exhausted. But anywho, life goes on, and being an adult sucks. Anywho, speaking of adults sucking, we're going to talk about Yolanda Saldivar. If you don't know who she is, she's the bitch that killed Selena. Oh yeah, if you don't like swearing, I'm sorry. I have a mouth like a sailor, and that's just me. So, Yolanda Saldivar, she was born on the 19th of September of 1960. She was born to Frank and Juanita Saldivar, and she was born in San Antonio, Texas. So, she was formerly a nurse. She is a fan of country music, but after she attended one of Selena's concerts, she began to repeatedly call Abraham Quintanilla, which is Selena's father, and talking to him about starting a fan club. And eventually her dad gave in, and she immediately, like that, became the president of the fan club. Yeah, so Yolanda at first was like super helpful when it came to everything with Selena. She was promoting her, like, she was promoted to being the manager of Selena's clothing boutique, which was very popular. And oh my God, the designs are magnificent. And that was called Selena, etc. By 1993, her fan club had 1,500 members in less than 4 years, and it eventually grew to over 5,000 people. It became one of the largest fan clubs in the San Antonio area. But obviously, things don't always things aren't always as it seems. So basically, in early 1995, this is when Selena's family discovered that Yolanda was embezzling money from the fan club and from the boutique, which led to them firing her in the first week of March. On the morning of March 31st, Selena agreed to meet Yolanda at the Days Inn Motel in Corpus Christi, and this is when she was going to be receiving the final financial records from Yolanda that she had been refusing to turn over. Sadly, Yolanda then again delayed handing over the documents because she said that she had been raped while she was in Mexico. So Selena then drove Yolanda to a local hospital, and where they were told that the actual exam was to be done somewhere else because the assault had allegedly happened in another country. So they were turned away. They then returned to the motel, and Selena asked for the records. She just had enough. This is when Yolanda took a 38 Taurus Model 85 revolver from her purse and pointed it at Selena. Selena then tried to run, but she was shot in the back, which severed an artery. She was critically wounded, and but it didn't stop her from trying to get away and to try and get help. Selena then ran towards the lobby, but Yolanda followed her and was yelling at her, calling her a bitch. Selena then collapsed on the floor, and the clerk dialed 911. It was later called that she died due to her blood loss at the hospital at 1:05 p.m. It was a very sad day for Tejano music, the day that Selena did die. And Yolanda Saldivar, she's still in prison. Um, so the Latino community in the United States followed very closely to this case. The trial was not televised, but cameras were allowed to be on the premises of the courthouses. They did move the court case itself to Houston, Texas, and this is after Yolanda's lawyers argued that she couldn't receive a fair trial if they were in Selena's hometown. So, I mean, that I agree with that. If people know exactly who Selena is, and you are on trial for her murder, people are literally they're not gonna look at you in a normalized way. Taking you out of that situation, putting you in a brand new place will be a lot easier. So before the start of the trial, prosecutors were expected to introduce a lot of controversial evidence from the police, especially a confession signed by Yolanda, in which she said she shot Selena during an argument over accusations from Abraham that Yolanda stole money from Selena's accounts, which is true. She did embezzle money, and basically the fan club went bankrupt, and so did Selena, etc. Like, there's no arguing that. Her defense was basically like, and her defense would try anything to get her out of all of this. And he argued that the shooting was accidental, but when the prosecution redirected, they pointed out that Yolanda, a trained nurse, did not call 911 or try to help Selena after she shot her. So, thus, it's not accidental. Jurors did deliberate, but it took less than 3 hours. And on October 23rd of 1995, this is when Yolanda Saldivar was found guilty of first-degree murder. 3 days later, she was sent to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 35 years. This was the maximum prison term allowed in Texas at the time. So on November 22nd, 1995, this is when Yolanda arrives at Gatesville Unit, which is now currently called the Christina Mellon Crane Unit in Gatesville, Texas. She is, however, at a different part. She's at the Mountain View Unit in Gatesville, and this is where she has been. She will become eligible for parole on March 30th of 2025. So, later, after she was convicted, the revolver that was used to kill Selena disappeared after the trial, but it was later found in the home of a court reporter. Her name is Sandra Abal, or Sandra Abaye, and she didn't realize that she had the revolver. Like, you know how when cases close, you bring home boxes from your case and like you file it away? That's what a lot of lawyers do. Well, I guess this court reporter, she didn't realize that it was in one of the boxes and she took it home. And after finding out what happened to it, a lot of historical groups wanted to keep the gun because they wanted to put it on display in memory of what had happened in this community. But the gun was later dismantled and the pieces were thrown into the Corpus Christi Bay in 2002. So Yolanda has petitioned for an appeal. She filed an appeal in 2000, but it was never sent to higher court. Her request was received on March 31st of 2008, and that was on the 13th anniversary of Selena's death. But she has yet to really fully be able to file an appeal. I mean, there's a lot of things that, like, yeah, I'm not going to touch that because it's a lot we can go down the rabbit hole of conspiracies and all that shit, but I'm not going to do that. So that, my friends, is the case of Yolanda Saldivar in the murder of Selena. I didn't want to go too in depth because her case has been talked about, and Yolanda she really destroyed Tejano music that day when she killed Selena. And the case itself is very sad. Like, you feel really bad for Selena, but you also feel really bad for her husband, Chris. Chris, ever since her murder, even before her murder, when they got married, when they started seeing each other, he was the oddball out, and he could never really he was never really included. Abraham never really allowed him to be a part of Selena's life. And even to this day, a lot of the things that have been done in retrospect to Selena's death, like the different movies, the different books, the different series that have been made. A lot of them have been made in favor of Abraham and their family, and not so much as talking to Chris and what he experienced with Selena. So that, my friends, is a case of Selena, and I hope you guys enjoy it and have a good day.